Hey everybody, this is Liam Martin from the internet, and today I'm going to talk about how SaaS businesses work today versus 6 years ago when me and Rob started Time Doctor and Staff.com. So SaaS businesses have come a long way in the last 6 years. The industry, there are influencers connected to SaaS, there are huge conferences connected to SaaS. The space is easily 10 to 20 times bigger than it was when we started our SaaS businesses. And at that time, it was a relatively new idea. Usually, you'd just pay a lump sum for someone's software. And SaaS was a new, interesting idea, which was don't pay a lot of money up front, pay a little bit of money on a month-to-month basis. And the advantages were for not only the customer, they could get continuous value from the software that would be constantly updated, but also the SaaS owner would have much more money in the long term working with that client because you'd be continuously providing value. And I learned a lot over the last 6 years, so I want to give you some of the top points that I think I kind of learned in the last 6 years of building a SaaS business and what I would do differently if I was building a SaaS business today. Number one thing is I would not have a free beta. When we first started Time Doctor, we had a free beta. And the reason why we had a free beta is, to be honest with you, we weren't confident that people really liked our product. We thought that our product wasn't very good. And we thought the only way we could convince people to actually use the product is if they started using it for free. And we realized that that was the bad decision to make. And the reason being is people will use a free product and they'll sign up for it and they'll be active. They might use it a little bit inside of their company, but they're not really going to give you the feedback that you need if it's a paid product. So even if you're charging someone $1 a month for your product, they'll give you 10 times the amount of feedback in comparison to them using it for free. So if I were to go back to the very beginning, we had the product for free for about 8 to 9 months. And if I had gone paid from the very beginning, we probably would have been a lot bigger than we are today because we just missed those critical 8 to 9 months that we needed to be able to build out the business even further inside of our particular industry, which is time tracking. Another thing that was really important is understanding the exponential component of SaaS. So SaaS isn't something that you make a lot of money on very quickly. In reality, you actually lose money on SaaS in the first couple years if you're doing it with an aggressive curve. However, every year that you continue on, if you have your numbers right, you'll constantly be growing, and you'll grow more and more and more every single year because the customers that you already have are hopefully quite happy and they tell other customers about it, and you're generating money from them, but then you're also acquiring money from new customers that are coming in the door. So we've found that we've just been constantly blown away from, oh man, this will be a $1 million business. Oh, this will only be a $5 million business. Oh, this will only be a $10 million business. And it's been amazing to just see the growth of the business and see where we're currently at and see that exponential growth because it really is remarkable in comparison to other businesses that just don't have that same type of leveling capacity. Third thing I would have done is I would have built a much simpler app than what we built today. So looking back on all of the different features that we've added inside of Time Doctor specifically, we have so many features, and a lot of those features are not really used by a large component of our user base. And it's used by a large enough component of our user base that we can't get rid of those features, but they require a lot of time and energy to stay up to date and dollars. So we've recognized that instead of just focusing on building a really complex app, you should build a much simpler app, start from there, and be very critical about adding new features inside of your SaaS app because you'll have to be keeping those features up and running for years and years and years to come, and they cost time, energy, and most importantly, money. Another tip is I would have focused on churn way earlier than I did inside of Time Doctor. So when we first started Time Doctor, we had a churn rate of around 5%. Now we have a churn rate of a little bit below 3%. And at the initial beginnings of a business, you think churn isn't that big of an issue, but it's massive when you look at the long-term capabilities of where you want your business to go. So even a 1% reduction in churn can double your business within the next year. And those are correct stats. A 1% reduction in churn from 5 to 4% can double your business within a year. It's much more efficient than getting those new customers. It's much more efficient than upselling those customers. Churn reduction is by far the most important component of how your business will grow long term. And if I had invested more time at the very beginning in reducing churn, it would have been a complete game changer for Time Doctor and Staff.com. Another tip is I would have had very clear documentation of where our numbers were much earlier. So we use an application called Chartmogul. And if you're interested in checking it out, just go to chartmogul.com. We'll link it down below. And Chartmogul has been absolutely fantastic because it gives us stuff like our annual revenue per user, our churn rate, our customer churn rate, our revenue churn rate, our MRR, our ARR, our projections long-term as a business. It gives us all of those stats, and it connects through a whole bunch of different APIs through merchant accounts to be able to make that happen. But it was so amazing to be able to get that data and really clearly understand what components of our customers are really the ones that we should focus on, which components of our customers we shouldn't focus on, how should we project our financial assessments over the next couple years, where should we be putting money, where should we be putting resources, how much money can we put away, how much money can we invest in particular departments. Chartmogul has been so critical, and before we used Chartmogul, we used spreadsheets, and spreadsheets are really bad because they've got human error all inside of them. So instead, using a tool like Chartmogul is a very clear interpretation of where we currently are and where we need to go. Completely changed the way that we saw our SaaS business. The last point is I would have put more energy into marketing much earlier inside of the business. So we put about 80% of our budget into product for the first couple years of the business, and realizing that we should have taken a lot of that money and put it into churn reduction, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, blog content, SEO, a whole bunch of other things connected to user acquisition would have been so much more profitable looking at it now versus where we put those resources at the very beginning. So if I was going to go all the way back to the beginning, I'd probably only spend about 50% of my budget on development and 50% of my budget on sales and marketing and support. That's probably a good mix. That's the mix that we currently have right now inside of Time Doctor and Staff.com. And it took us about 3 to 4 years to be able to get to that point to recognize that you're not all Slacks of the world. You're not all Salesforces. Taking your energy and only putting it into product is only a good model if you are a Slack that's a multi-billion-dollar company or a Salesforce that's a multi-billion-dollar company. It's not a good activity if you are a company that's really focusing on just mid-tier growth as a business and not necessarily these multi-billion-dollar unicorns that you see in TechCrunch all day long. So those are my tips on how I would build a SaaS company today. If you have any other tips on how to build a SaaS company, please put them down in the comments down below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down. Tell me that I suck and I will try to make better videos in the future. So until then, I'll see you in the next one.